So, to the extent that interpretations are mirrors, I believe the one that we've just gone over with respect to the radical peculiarity of the speaker in contrast to the standing stock of word meanings, is could be easily broken. But nonetheless, it has something to add. So, on the one hand, interpretations and philosophies on the whole can be taken to lead us along the primrose path to despair, to the feeling that philosophy is useless. On the other hand, it can bring us to the view that of perspectivalism, where in some way um, the it's, instead of the feeling of the one who goes over to the view of philosophy as um, uh, useless for picking up reality, we have this sort of ashen feeling that everything's leading to nothing. We have, on the other hand, a gleam of a pearl of the perspectivalism, because the perspectivalism shows, look at the wonders that we can enjoy the variety of ways of approaching reality, and it's very rich. Um, uh, Nonetheless, uh, there's this question of the unity we were bringing up. Nietzsche mourns the loss of the unity. Um, and in Herder was inspired in part by Winckelmann, and you can say in Nietzsche's time, the rise of the Philhellenism, the love of the Herder is glossed sometimes as anti enlightenment, or how do they call that? Or romantic, I guess, a romantic, or um, against the Enlightenment. One of Herder's predecessors was Winckelmann, who was one of the first Germans to go into the field of uh, like Indiana Jones, as it were, thinking about the artifacts. Um, and he said he spoke of the Adel einfach und stille Grosse, the simple nobility, and the, uh, the silent grandeur of the ancients, and this idea of being a contemporary with the ancients, of being able to be as it were, a participant observer with the ancients, and become like them, came over to Herder when Herder interpreted the Germans in some way, as we might learn on Wikipedia, as Gothic, so under the Gothic form. So there's that problem with the idea of the form, is the form can have this heavy Teutonic meaning of the German Volk, are like Gothics. They're like Albert Dürer. They're like the philosophy of Hegel, or however you like. On the other hand, it has this frivolous meaning of their like the latest mode of the French, and they're copying the coats and the fashions of the French, and so on. I think that, so the other thing we want to approach here, to give this more uh, uh, to give our interpretation of the problem of where Heidegger is not understood, is that we want to go directly into the concept of Dasein, which can stand for the problem of the question of being also. So this antagonism within itself. So what's the antagonism within itself in Dasein, which is basically, if you think of Descartes, we have our attention floats over everything, and this can be understood in several ways. Our attention can float over things, has environmental being as a in the Umwelt, as it were, in captivation, according to the von Uxel idea. And in this way, we're not simply the anatomous creature, which is bound by our skin, and only the inside is the human being. Rather, we're externalists, quote unquote, as the analytic philosophers call it now, the externalists with regard to consciousness. But we're inside, we're outside. Dasein is can't be limited to the organism, human being, in terms of biological thinking. On the other hand, our attention, our intellect, our consciousness, our thinking floats over things also in the form of availability to us, where we think of things in general terms, where we think of possibilities, where we think of in the Hobbesian sense of power, of that I can think, what can I do with this situation? What does it offer to me? What are the possibilities here? And if I make it come off, then I pride myself in my superiority over all things over all the other animals, over all things that exist in the world. The Hobbesian sense of the power. In this sense of the concept of Dasein, we have this problem that the two fields of Descartes must somehow be within themselves. And this contemplation is one that Heidegger, I'll say just extemporaneously, let's say Heidegger prides himself on discovering this. Maybe that's unfair. It's a little bit depreciatory to say that, and in a way it doesn't make sense to say that here we are reaching the most important thing, and all that matters is the egotistic pride and being the first one to discover it. The defenders of Heidegger would say Heidegger doesn't care a whit about being original, but what he cares about is originariness, as they coin it, as getting closer to the bottom of things. But within this womb of difficulties, we can see another spot where Heidegger may be misunderstood, and we must therefore attend to that in reading Heidegger's interpretation of Nietzsche's what it was apparently the second essay in the Thoughts Out of Season. So let us try that way too going forward.